Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ladies of Sosa podcast. My name is Sahra.
And my name is Christine.
Today, we are going to be discussing the pushback of the South Sudanese presidential elections. They pushed it back to 2026 when it was originally supposed to be, I believe, 2024, right? It was supposed to be this year.
In December?
Yeah, December of 2024. And they now have pushed it back to 2026. So we're going to kind of get feedback from our panel, how they feel about that. Do they feel like South Sudan is ready for democracy? We're on our TikTok live right now. We have that running. And some people say, like, if they did it this year, there would have been a tribal war that broke out. So, maybe it was good for it to be pushed back. We just want to see how everybody feels about it. Also, there was recent gunfire that imploded in South Sudan, and we're going to talk about that as well. But before we get into further details, we want to go ahead and introduce our panel. Oh, Christine, is there anything you want? Like, I'm sorry.
No, we're live on TikTok now, so if you see me looking to the side, we have people that will be joining in on the conversation and kind of giving us talking points. So go ahead. And
people from South Sudan as well, so they can kind of tell us what's true, what's not true, and so we're looking forward to including our TikTok live. So let's go ahead and start with our panel. Where do y'all want to start? Y'all want to start on the couch, Vaida?
Let's start with the couch.
Okay, let's start with the boys.
Not Amanual being on the FaceTime.
Amanual, go ahead and introduce yourself, Mr. FaceTime.
I'm Amanual.
Who's on FaceTime? Who's calling us?
Is that your brother?
Yeah, Juju and my boy Fossa on FaceTime.
Oh, hi guys. Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself, Tariq.
Oh, hey, how y'all doing? All right.
Vaida.
Hi, everyone. It's Vaida. Happy to be back.
Hey everyone, Janet here. Happy to be back and happy to dive into today's conversation.
Me too. And this is a morning shoot as well.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit of a different vibe. I feel like we're more laid back today, and I actually like it. I like to have like both experiences, But yeah, do you guys want to go ahead and dive into the topic? Do you guys?
No, well, before we get into the topic, how are you doing? So Sarah just came back from the University of Michigan. So I really want you to share with our audience why you were there and what your experience was like. She was speaking on behalf of Ladies of Sosa.
Yes.
So
So I was actually invited to go to the University of Michigan. The African Studies program invited me and my mom. My mom couldn't make it because she's in South Sudan right now. Because she wrote a book. I don't know if you guys are aware. She wrote a book called Woman Caught in the Crossfire, which details the woman's experience during the civil war in South Sudan between the North and the South. So she wrote about her experience and other women at the time. And then I was invited to kind of speak on behalf of Ladies of Sosa. And the actual symposium was in regard to the recent conflict in Sudan. There was a civil war that broke out, and hundreds of thousands of people have died, more displaced. At Khartoum, I don't even think Khartoum is livable right now. And, genocide has sparked again in Darfur. Just so much stuff is going on. And so I was in there. They had a symposium to kind of figure out ways to expedite peace in the region. It's like the biggest humanitarian crisis that's happening right now, but nobody's talking about it. There's no media coverage on, not a lot of media coverage that's happening on Sudan. So I was honored to be a part of it. I wasn't really sure how I could contribute because I'm like, but I'm from South Sudan now. I'm not politically from Sudan. But then you realize a lot of the issues are really interconnected. Genocide in Darfur, that's happened. That happened since 2000, the early 2000s. And I remember going to the Free Darfur conferences, rallies. And this was before South Sudan split. So the fact that they're going through genocide again, it really showcases our history is so interconnected, And so it was just a great experience. I don't want to talk too long about it, but I learned so much from the Sudanese scholars. There's so many scholars there, so many intellectuals, professors, policymakers. The first ambassador to South Sudan, Dr. Susan Page, she's a professor at the University of Michigan. She was there, and she was the first ambassador of South Sudan. I got to meet her. It was just, I couldn't believe I was there. I was like, I'm amongst scholars. I kind of had imposter syndrome a little bit, because you think you know a lot about your country and about the region until you are around people who wrote books on it, who have their doctor's degrees on like African political like so I was like, wow, I'm honored to be around such
And
like
you did a good job because I remember I was texting you and you were nervous, but you brought something unique to the panel because you were able to be a lot more relatable to the students that were there, and I think they told you that. So
yeah.
I mean, you served your purpose and you belong there.
Yeah, and then really stressing the importance of using media to bring awareness, because they were trying to figure out ways to also bring awareness and put more emphasis on like media showcasing what's going on in Sudan. And I'm like, technically we do have a media platform, so I could help in that way. I can contribute in that way where we can kind of highlight what's going on. So yeah, for sure. And it's a lot of older scholars, so they don't really realize the impact of social media. So just kind of stressing that. So I feel like that's where I brought my expertise. But
And you were able to source a few potential guests for us.
hello,
so
yes.
you were working out there.
Yes. So I got a lot of people to agree to be on the podcast, scholars, doctors, professors, and we're going to put a spotlight on what is going on in Sudan. I think we're going to name it a series. We're going to call it a series. We're still going to have our regular podcast, but have that as like a part of a series where we have a panel, we have the professor or the expert, and then they're going to like kind of brief us on what's going on. We can ask questions, we can dive deep. So,
and a lot of people that you met watched the show. You told that really cute story about the white man that you met.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Tim.
So that we can shout him out. Shout out to Tim.
His name is Tim. So I met Tim. He actually works in South Sudan.
Yes.
I forgot exactly what he does, but he has I think he works for like a nonprofit or non-government organization. And he was like, I watch Ladies of Sosa.
In
And
Juba.
I was like, and he actually did a presentation, and he was like, yeah, there's a group of us who always like get together and watch the show. Wow. I cringed a little bit because I'm like, what did I say? Because you never realize who's watching, and sometimes I just be saying it. We just have a good time. We're like we're ourselves, and I'm like, I don't remember what I said, but hey, they watched the show, which means like we're doing a good job. We're on the right path, and we're so grateful for you guys for watching the show, to our TikTok live, to anybody who's a part of our audience. We really do appreciate it, because sometimes we forget there's actual people behind the numbers that we see. To meet people in person that say, hey, I watch it. Like, I watch y'all show. I know, like, shout out say hi to like the panelists. Like, that's really, really cool. So
you told me a lot about your experience there. Half of my family that lives, like my mom's side of the family, they're all displaced in Khartoum. Since the war broke out, they're not in school. They just now got into stable housing. My mom was able to help them find somewhere to at least have a roof over their head. It's really, really hard. And honestly, when you think about the fact that a lot of these young people are not in school for such an extended period of time, that's going to affect them a lot as far as their future goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And they actually brought that up in the conference, talking about like what's going to be the ramifications of all of these young people not being educated, not being able to go to school. Because it really just disrupted people's lives. Like, people were going to school, going to college, going to work, having their day-to-day lives, and then war erupts, and they have to like pretty much scramble to figure out what they're gonna do, which means like moving like to neighboring countries. A lot of people are suffering from food insecurity. I think it's even more than half of the people in Sudan right now don't have access to food and water. So it's just this entire situation is like the entire region is at risk of like being destabilized, and so it's a huge deal, and nobody's really paying attention to it.
Well, I think it's more of like the marketing of it. It's like I think people are so used to hearing Sudan war, like it's since the 90s, but that's when we were born. Since even before that, people just assume that Sudan is always in constant conflict, and I think that's one of the things about it is like people don't view Sudan with a lens of humanity.
Yeah.
And again, like even with what just recently happened with the elections, we were just talking about people being able to move here, but they're not going to be able to move here like we did in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because of what recently happened. So the real conversation here is like, how are you viewing these people if you just want them to benefit you as a country and not thinking of it, what America used to mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be that like when you came to America, you were looking for opportunity. You weren't just looking for a handout. You were looking for help so that then eventually you could be a helpful part of society.
Yeah.
But when you just go for, I just want people who are scholars, you don't look at the people who are actually suffering and who actually need some of that. So like people ask, why do people come here illegally? Sometimes the legal way could mean death. And I think that's something that people always forget. Like,
yeah. And they talked about that too, how that, during our civil war between the North and the South, there was a lot of I think there was a lot of media attention, at least. I mean, I don't know. I was a kid, so y'all you correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a little bit more media attention, and there was a lot more I remember like even the Bush administration like highlighted. That's why a lot of South Sudanese people are Republican. They love Bush. Because there was a lot of emphasis on what was going on in South Sudan, and people kind of paid attention, and also like
back
Black
when Republicans were actually Christian. I mean,
yes, that's true. And there's religion plays a part into that, and then there was a lot of like Black people who kind of resonated with our experience because of being like marginalized and just discrimination. So I think that also rallied people. But with this war, for some reason, people are not seeing it within the same lens. And there's not the same amount of attention, and it may be because like religion, like maybe people feel like, oh, these people are not, they're Muslim, and then maybe also they feel. A professor said a lot of people are not convinced that Sudanese people are African or are Black.
Within the African American community, there was a lot of participation within the Save Darfur movement. 20 years later, I know, objectively speaking, that Sudan is not appearing in African American media platforms nearly to the extent that Sudan was very much circulating among Black people in this country. So I think that one of the tragedies of the current...
You just articulated also another issue. Not all African Americans are persuaded that Sudanese are African. It's just as simple as that. And I think that that is partly the responsibility, of course, of Sudanese elites, but as an African American community, it's also our responsibility to understand this is an African country in every shape or form. It is, that there is also, on the other side of the equation, a really interesting kind of necessity to really educate ourselves. And every time I appear on local African American radio, the response is amazing, extraordinary, welcoming in a way that is not present in other radio stations. The interest is there, I would argue equally, if not more, than in Gaza, and I don't think one should be elevated above another.
So they, so they may not be as sympathetic to the cause. That's maybe it, but I'm not really sure. Like we need to unpack that.
I don't think people necessarily understand the demographics of North Sudan, because I think they always assume North Sudanese look more Ethiopian, but like there are people that look just like us. Like Darfur is a prime example of like all Black people there.
Yeah.
And I think that's another conversation. It's like people are just ignorant of the rest of the world, and they're ignorant of Sudan. And I think that's why we need a large representation of Sudan in general, even on our show. For as much as we pretend like Sudan is not a part of us, that's our heart also. Even though it has been war, but like at the same time, we fight each other in South Sudan all the time. Yeah, like recently.
Yeah, and honestly, when I was at the symposium, because honestly, I'm gonna be real, I did have a I thought that Sudan would look different. You know what I mean? Like I always assumed that Sudanese people have a look distinctly different than South Sudanese people. So I had like a very simplistic view of the dynamic between Sudan and South Sudan. But obviously, I have slowly unlearned that. But also going to the symposium, there was people who considered themselves politically Sudanese that looked exactly like me or darker, or like people that I grew up like. You look like my auntie. You look like my cousin. Like people that look like us that just were split because of the border. So they're politically different, but they literally look like me. They look like my people. But I guess I kind of grew up thinking like people from Sudan are complete different people than from me. So it's like an unlearning process as well, and unpacking and like unlearning like what you think, because war makes people divided. And
I think that's also a result of like not growing up back home, so not being able to see the different groups of people, because there's so many tribes. I think there's over like 200 tribes in Sudan, and then we have 64 in South Sudan. So you can imagine how many different groups of people with different phenotypes it's such a diverse country. And I mean, my family's from Sudan on my mom's side, and they're dark skinned. So you know.
I always thought like Sudan is Arab, South Sudan is Black Africans. So I thought there was
but they are dark skinned Arabs too.
Yeah,
like
'cause
my
they were-
grandmother's from like a tribe in North Darfur, and they're not every person is like completely light skinned with like fine hair.
Right, right.
You know, there a lot of people have intermarried too, so that happened a lot in my family. So I mean,
yeah, and there's like the Arabization of Sudan, which like makes like there's Arab tribes, there's African
Right.
tribes, and they all intermix that make, you know, like Afro Nubian. Like, so it's more complicated or more diverse than just black and white. So that a lot of people don't know, and I didn't know that honestly because I grew up you know, South Sudan independence, like we the bad people from there look completely different from us, and that's why they, you know. But there's so much
there's way more
political
nuance
stuff
to
that
it.
goes into it. Yeah.
I think we forget because I remember I had a conversation with my dad and he used to talk about the oral history of like even Khartoum. Like I was born in Khartoum, but my dad used to always tell me, he was like, bro, like not bro, but he used to say,
Bro.
dog. Okay. He used to say that north in Khartoum, like that was our original homeland. Like we were all up north.
Yeah.
And then we were pushed down. But at the same conversation, it's like there's so much bitterness that we forget to acknowledge the fact that north and south, we are brothers and sisters. Like my sister lived in Khartoum, and my grandmother was in Khartoum, and that was her home since I was younger. My mom and my dad would come back and forth from Abyei. So, like even for me being in Abyei, north and south for me, it's like the same thing because I have no identity. So whenever I hear war from either side, I'm always like, I know there's family that's going to be hurt either way.
right.
And it's always the same conversation of like, we're always feeling like we're hurt. We get numb to it because we're like, oh, there's another war, there's another war, there's another war. But the truth of it is, we shouldn't be. Like, we should be consistently pushing forward. But at a certain point, we get tired. But can you imagine how our parents felt dealing with that their whole lives?
Yeah.
Like doing it for 40, 60, 70 years of that consistently in their head. And they're still fighting. So for me, it's up to us to still be able to say we can still fight for peace. Because in my mom's heart, North and South Sudan should be one and whole. Like John Garang used to say, it should be one and whole.
Yeah.
And like, even if we are separated as countries, we still can be great allies to each other and still acknowledge the fact that we had pain. We need to get rid of the scab, but then eventually healing should be the main focus.
Yeah. I'm still don't know. I'm not convinced that South Sudan should not have split because I feel like there's still so much marginalization.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't being represented. So what do you do if you're not being represented? You just keep dealing with that and just continue to be not represented. I think that our people, like our leaders, did what they could at the time. The SPLM or SPLMA, sorry, did what they could to try to fight for representation.
I'm acknowledging that completely, but that's what I'm saying is like moving forward, we still need to have allyship because at the end of the day, two Sudans that have a similar goal for the future, especially when it comes to trade or anything else, it needs to be like that so we can have stronger communication so things can heal over. It's not like we're going to reunite because that's not going to happen. But at the same time, we need to learn from our mistakes because even South Sudan, we still need to acknowledge that everybody needs to be represented in our government.
Speaking of that, speaking of that, oh my gosh! So there was a time where during the symposium and that at the University of Michigan, where after everybody spoke on that specific panel, they would do like a Q&A. And there was a girl who's from Sudan. Her husband was on the panel. He sat right next to me. And they were one of the people who looked like me, like looked like us. Like, so they, I'm like, I resonated because I'm like, oh, these are like my people. And she asked a question because I kind of brought up during my speech about how South Sudanese people, like how, the split and how we felt marginalized. And she asked me, she was like, do you think that Sudanese people or Sudan will ever take accountability for what happened to South Sudan? And then she was like, also, she was like, why do you think that South Sudan was marginalized and why we were treated the way that we were treated? And I was like, I kind of struggled to answer the question because I'm here for a conference about the conflict in Sudan. So I didn't want to really like divert the attention away from that and make it be like, well, this is what happened to us and like turn it around. So I wanted to answer honestly, but also not take away from the conflict that's happening today. So I did struggle to answer that question a little bit. And I pretty much said, listen, I was like, I guess hindsight is 2020. Like, obviously we dealt with our civil war and now you guys are dealing with it now. And maybe if people had acknowledged what happened to us, maybe that's what we wouldn't be in this predicament now. You know what I'm saying? But I said it in such a way like, you know, I didn't want, you know, I'm just like, right now we're kind of focused on the conflict in our country, what's going on with our country. I don't think, you know, like we're more focused on what happened between the North and the South. Now it's like we're trying to deal with corruption and, you know, people living a good life in South Sudan. But there was a professor that came after me who she's half South Sudanese and half American. And she was like, you gave too much grace. It's okay. She was like, and she went up there and she was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And then another person, a Sudanese person who was next to me on the other side was like, you know, we didn't know what was happening in South Sudan. We didn't know about the marginalization. We didn't know about the genocide because under Bashir's administration, regime, you know, there was like, they had control over the media. So of course they're not going to be showcasing genocide and like what's happening. So he was like, a lot of people didn't know. And so she went up there and she was like, you were being nice and I understand you're being, you know, diplomatic. And she was like, they knew. And she went up there and she was like, no, Sudan did know about the marginalization of South Sudanese people. I've actually went to forums where I actually would talk about the slavery and the genocide and the discrimination. And I was shouted out of those places when I would bring up what's going on. So it was she pretty much was like, maybe they didn't want to know, but they knew and they had the opportunity to know. So I got to hear both sides of the story, which was I loved because I got to hear like I didn't know about it. And I do believe him when he said he didn't know. He said he read it. He said he found out about the Darfur genocide from reading a poem that was like hidden. It wasn't like something that was like mass produced. So I believed him. I also believed her, the professor who said they knew. And I can kind of like come to my own conclusion, you know? So I loved being able to kind of like see both sides of the story.
How'd you feel after doing that? Were you proud of yourself? You did really, really well.
Yeah, I felt proud. I I love being the least smartest person in the room. I love it. Like I felt like I was like a small fish, and I'm like, I'm so happy to be here, you know, because
who's the guy who actually knew the president of
Rwanda
personally?
Dr. Madani. He's a professor at the University of Michigan who we hope to have on the show because he was like, I can't wait to watch the podcast. I said, oh,
I'm gonna have some questions about Rwanda. Don't get it twisted. Right? I got beef with the Rwanda.
He met the president of Rwanda twice.
He met him. Him. I thought he was cool with him because
the way he said it, he was like, Kagame told him that the war was coming, and then he came when the war happened. He was like, "I told you so." So he kind of has a rapport with him. So I would love to get some like background information, learn a lot.
Because here's the thing, Paul Kagame, man, that man, respectfully, he does have some blood on his hand, especially when it comes to the Congo. Like
Let's talk, and we can talk.
That's why I look at that man. Him knowing about what was happening in South Sudan.
Yeah.
I mean, North Sudan tells me exactly what people have been saying for years, which is he is a puppet of the West. And he's always been for the Rwandan people. Obviously, he helps the Rwandan people, but at what cost is it for the rest of East Africa and Central Africa?
I don't think he was saying the war is coming in Sudan. I thought he was talking about Rwanda in the context that he was talking. I don't know, but we can find out.
Okay, he can definitely find out.
We can find out. We can have him on the show. So we're gonna work on a series. You know, the symposium was called Sudan in the Eye of the Storm. So I was like, maybe we can kind of incorporate that. We come up with
if y'all can help us come up with a good name for the series, that would be amazing. Yeah, I feel like a good name will help it be able to generate more traction. Something catchy.
Because like you said, it impacts South Sudanese as well because you have family that still lives in Sudan, North Sudan, and also displacement affects the entire region of East Africa, and a lot of people are moving to South Sudan because of the war. And we are already a poor country. We can't even take care of our own. So like, imagine like how, displacement can affect the economy. I'm not an economist. I don't know if that hurts or helps, but it just sounds like if you're getting more displaced people, it's like, how do you manage if you're a poor country or a country that's not developed? But I guess we can go into the actual topic.
Wait, but what Amanual was saying earlier about immigration and how like lucky we were to be able to come over when we came over. Thanksgiving is coming up this week, so when this episode comes out, it's going to be Tuesday, and I feel like Thanksgiving is obviously an American holiday. They don't have that back in South Sudan, but as people who grew up in America, I would love for us to just say one thing that we're thankful for. And I want to know, now that we're adults, like, what are you guys' like holiday traditions? Do you guys decorate your apartments? Do you guys put up a Christmas tree? What are you doing now that you kind of are adults and have your own households for the holidays to get into that holiday spirit?
I'm thankful for just community. Like, I feel like at this age, I just recognize how much like it's so important to have good people around you, especially whenever my immediate family is 8 hours away. So I just am grateful for my friends, and I'm grateful for all the people that are in my life that just help me to just grow and, you know, be a better person and all the things. For Thanksgiving, I'm going back home to Kansas City. So yes, and so like
fun.
family's gonna get together and just cook and just enjoy. It's great. I love the holiday season because I get to see my immediate family, but also my extended family as well. So it's great. I love it.
And do you decorate?
I don't really decorate. I mean, I don't decorate for things fall. For Christmas, that's whenever I do decorate. So yes.
You have your tree up already?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I need to. But yes, it's a lot of work. Yes. Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm grateful for, I guess I could piggyback off that, but community, but also I feel like right now my life feels whole with my family and like my friends. We all live in the same city. So just being able to have close proximity to the people that you love and know that, we're one call away, but I can also drive to your house. I can, hang out with you frequently. So just very grateful for that proximity to the people that are close to me. For the holidays, so me and my family, it's really just my siblings and my immediate family. So Thanksgiving is the usual. Everyone is my little brother literally was like, 7 days till mac and cheese.
No,
like
Janet throws down.
Like he literally
Growing
cannot
up,
wait till
I
Thursday.
would always go to your house to get a plate. It was a must.
So yeah, we never skip Thanksgiving in our house. We're gonna find a way to get together. It looks different now because everybody's older. Some of my siblings have children now, so they have their own family dynamic. But I feel like the core of our family still tries to make it an important aspect for us to just get together and celebrate and share that meal. So very excited for it. Mm-hmm.
What about you, Tariq?
What am I thankful for?
Yeah, what are you thankful for? What are your plans for Thanksgiving? Like,
Thankful for myself for getting myself to this point. So I don't do any plans for Thanksgiving. So probably I'm thankful for PTO the whole month of December.
Oh yes.
So I'll be out.
Yeah, shout out to
So everybody just figure out which flight is the cheapest to leave this winter.
December 3rd is the best time to go buy the flight.
Yeah.
So you're traveling? You're traveling during Thanksgiving?
You're going back to Florida?
Nah.
You're not gonna see family in like Florida? Nothing?
Nah.
You staying here?
October, November, and December are months I don't care about. I don't really be.
Oh, he's
around.
Muslim.
That has nothing to do with me.
Oh,
I'm not
no, because
Muslim.
I'm just saying for Christmas.
I just don't like the cold. I don't like
is not Muslim.
the holidays.
He said he's Muslim.
It's nauseating for me.
Tariq is always something different.
It's because
Sometimes
he's all muscle mass. He ain't got no fat on him, so he like.
Did you say cold like in conjunction
cold.
to Texas?
Yeah, like today was freezing.
It is cold out here.
So I gotta like leave. I gotta go somewhere where it's warmer. So whichever country is cheap right now, that's where I'm going, where it's warm.
Bolivia.
Nah, I can't go to Bolivia.
We should
too
take
much, too much snow or the other kind. Bolivia snow is a little pure.
Okay.
I'm grateful for my family. I think I'm blessed to have them all. But outside of that, it's like I'm gonna spend. It's gonna be me. It's only gonna be a smaller family get together because normally it's just me, my dad, my mom, and the rest of my siblings. But 2 of my siblings are not gonna be there this time. They're gonna be in New York and Colorado. But we're probably gonna FaceTime. Like, I think I'm super close with my family because we all tight knit, and none of us got kids yet. So I think we've been kid free since 2007. So let's hope that we make another year around where nobody getting pregnant and everybody doing what they want to do.
We
for
want
their dreams.
kids.
I sounded like a Grinch now.
Yeah.
Somebody on the TikTok said, I wish pregnancy on all 3 of y'all earlier. I didn't want to say that because it wasn't the time.
Amen.
Yeah.
But I wish your ring first.
Yeah, it wasn't the time. And then Calvin said, okay,
pregnancy.
Sarah Badu, I see you. I just...
You know what I'm saying? I just needed my incense.
Shout out to Calvin.
Okay, I'm real peaceful.
I mean,
this
it is.
morning.
You are in Dallas, and that's where she's from. She's from Oak Cliff.
Listen, yeah. Listen.
How about y'all? Do y'all feel like, well, after y'all answer, but do y'all feel like the holidays have changed as we've gotten older and we're like the new adults? Do you feel like more of a responsibility to lead the holiday
it's a bill
festivities?
Yeah, I feel like there's
That's
not a
what it
lot
is.
of community anymore. Like,
It's because our generation is lazy.
yeah, I mean, true. And like nobody wants to like head on the like, you know,
Take the initiative.
events
Aren't you
and
doing
do
an
it.
event on the
So-
14th? That's
Exactly.
supposed to be based
Yeah.
around.
So
Yeah.
the whole reason I brought up Thanksgiving and the holidays, like real
Yeah.
quick before we say what we're thankful for, on
Yeah.
December 14th, and to our TikTok family, y'all are invited too. So just to keep promoting the event, we're putting on an event with the community on the 14th. It's going to be called Bridging the Gap Between the Youth and the Elders. The elders are going to be cooking all of the South Sudanese food that we love. So there'll be multiple speakers. And then we're going to do like a town hall, like an open mic. So fingers crossed, because we've never done this before.
Yeah.
You know, we always say we miss community. We miss being around each other. This is going to be a great opportunity. So inviting everyone, if you are in Dallas, please make sure you come out to the event on the 14th.
Everybody is invited. There's going to be food provided. We're going to be at the church. Yeah.
So please, we would love to see you there. And it's open invite. So
Open
bring
invite.
a friend.
Just as long as you RSVP, we'll know how much food to have.
Yes.
We're going to have a
Mula combo.
We're going to have an episode. So people who have actually not been to the studio, you can still be on an episode because we're going to be
Yes.
recording a full panel.
Y'all
So,
know
yeah.
when the podcast do like their live recording and then like you can come up to the mic and say something.
Yeah.
We're gonna moderate it because you know how our people get. We can't have 30-minute
30-minute
speeches.
Yeah.
But
I don't have too much to say, but
Right.
we don't have
1 hour later.
time for that. No.
But we want everyone to have a chance to speak and have a voice. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited. Everyone's invited. And Sarah, what are you thankful for?
Yeah, I'm thankful for this platform. I feel like, you know how I said there's not a lot of community anymore where people like spearhead, like, this is what we're doing for Thanksgiving, this is what we're doing for Christmas, and the whole community to come together. At least there is like a media or online presence where everybody can kind of feel community and we can kind of share like what we're thankful for, what we need, what we want, what we're hoping for, you know, in the like for 2025, and just like our just building like a little community of people where we can share our issues and talk about stuff. It doesn't even have to be like issues all the time. We could just share perspectives on what's going on in the world, and being able to see people that look like me. Be
Also
able to do that.
networking.
Yeah.
Because through putting this event together, we're working with Auntie Aquat, who was on the podcast, and she's having us reach out to other people our age group that, gosh, I haven't seen really or interacted with since we were kids. So it's given us an opportunity to have a reason to tap back in with people that kind of we've drifted apart as people kind of gone their own way.
Yeah.
So I think that's beautiful, and it's an amazing thing because you don't know what people are doing nowadays, how you can be of service to one another. So I'm excited.
Yeah, so that's what I'm excited about, just like being able to do this, because if we didn't have the platform, I think we wouldn't be able to like do the event, because the reason why they did want to partner with us is because we can share this with on our podcast. So it's amazing that we were able to like kind of bring back what we always complain about, like the lack of community. We can kind of like bring us all together. So I love it.
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
It reminds me of one of my mutuals on TikTok. She was talking about how like she didn't feel like her community in Arizona was connected. And I think
I saw that TikTok.
Yeah, she was. But she's gonna be in Dallas, so
Yeah.
we could really have that conversation with her. But I was talking about how like I don't know. I feel like the Dallas community is pretty linked up, but it's just segregated through age and I said segregated. It's segregated through age and like, you know, specific demographics.
I feel like we're linked up at the hookah lounge.
Yeah, I mean, Friends is
That's the link up. Yeah, but it's like we're not linked up in like important.
Linked up
stuff.
back in the day. It's like even if you're not directly friends with someone, you're in community with them, right? So you see them at events, like you're around them. So I feel like that really is what we're trying to get back to. You don't necessarily have to be close to everyone or on a friendship basis, but you're in community with them. You're seeing them frequently enough to where you can reach out to them if need be, or you can be of support for them if they like go through a hardship, lose someone, or anything.
No,
So
I agree. Yeah.
I think that's what we're missing.
Yeah, I think like nowadays with people, if people are not like, if they're not people that go outside and like to do the like the parties and the scenes, like you're not going to see them.
Yeah.
But if we kind of bring back just like the regular holiday events or just like community events, then we'll see the people who may not feel comfortable, like, doing certain things, but they'll come to the community events.
Yeah.
So it brings everybody together, like
It
on
makes
different
people
levels.
more approachable.
Yeah. And nothing against the hookah lounge. I like hookah there here and there, but I feel like that's the only place that there's community where people you see South Sudanese people together. In my opinion, I don't see that.
Yesterday, what are we talking about here?
There's nothing wrong with it, but I feel like just having like a diverse community, like diverse spaces where we can have community.
It does require us to kind of invest in amongst our own and amongst ourselves, because like the truth of it is, I think every other community does that a lot of the times. And I think with the Sudanese community, we kind of do turn into crabs in a barrel when somebody does try to do something. We don't usually support like as much as we should.
Yeah.
Which is why hit Ladies and Sosa up so that we can promote your businesses, especially if you Sudanese, Ugandan, or any East African in general.
Did the TikTok hear what Amanual said? Did you want to read something from there?
They said, what are the lounges in Dallas?
Worried about the wrong
The lounges? The lounges in Dallas.
Friends is a very popular one for South Sudanese here. So if
Shout
you
out
were
to my
looking
cousin, Billy.
to run into, it's an after hours place.
And that's the thing. Off of Amanual's point, okay, we don't have like a community. Okay, if we're gonna do lounges all the time, if we're gonna do hookah lounges, we need our own hookah lounge. We need our own South Sudanese run based, like funded hookah lounge, like because we don't have our own businesses, so we're out here supporting other people's businesses, and the money's never being like
put back into the community.
put back into our community. So at least can we just like, and he's right. Maybe if there was a South Sudanese hookah lounge, would people support?
The problem is when there is a South Sudanese hookah lounge, people be coming in there trying to haggle. Malush, Ishirin, I wanted $10. They come there, they're thinking they want to haggle because it's a South Sudanese person running it, rather than knowing that it's a business that it's a business that gotta get paid. Now, me personally, I don't go to hookah lounges anymore because they do be stealing money now. Because $50 for a hookah that I can make at home for $5, and then cups is $5. Huh?
I thought you said you went yesterday.
I was lying. I was at a strip club, but that's
Talk about scholars.
For $20.
We're talking about
For $20.
But no,
DG got hookah for $20.
That aside, I think with us and the platform that we have, what Amanual was saying about dang, you just made me lose my train of thought. Not supporting each other. Yeah, that's something that we're trying to work on, which is why we're doing this event, because a lot of people outside of Ladies of Sosa have said, why don't we come around? I want us to have that approachability. Is that even a word? I don't want it to be like, oh, we're doing this podcast and we're thinking that we're high and mighty, because that's not our energy or our vibe. So I think doing events like this where we get out into the community more, just trying to like show up more in person so that people know we want you to be involved. We want you to be a part of it.
And practice what we preach.
Yeah, we want to be in the community. We want to serve the community, most importantly. I think this is kind of us taking the first step to literally bridge that gap, because we want people to be on the show. But it's like, how can you invite people to be on the show when, what are you doing for people?
Right.
Yep.
Right. Like, I mean, like if I don't see you out, how do I feel comfortable coming to?
Exactly.
Like, it's like a two-way street.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you said, sometimes that familiarity makes people be like, I'm not about to come on that show, or I'm not, like, unless they come out and ask me directly and convince me, I'm not gonna
have that mentality. If I'm not invited, I'm not gonna.
If you don't come out directly and like really let me know you want me to be on your show, I'm not gonna support you.
If you're not begged,
if I'm not like, can we be real quick?
Yeah.
Can we talk about, because since Manuel brought up like the lack of support, let's be real. It do be the people in Dallas who be like, unless I get a direct invite, I'm not going to support. I'm not going to be on the show. And there's other people that we have never met before who are like, I would love to be a part. I would love to get to know you. Like they have like more support. And it's like sometimes the people in Dallas, they have this mentality like, oh, I grew up with you. Who do you think you are? Come ask me. But I'm like, okay, we always put an open invite. We always say, hey, we're talking about this topic, or if you want to be on the show, you can like let us know through here. So we don't hinder people from being on the show. But some people, they want you to beg them, like,
How you offended that I didn't invite you when you didn't put the effort to come to the show to express yourself the way you want to be expressed.
And it's not even about putting the effort. It's like it's an open invitation. The people who want to be on the show, you can. Sometimes we do invite. In the beginning, we did invite people, like, you know, that because we needed people on. There's no like example, like there's nothing that they didn't know about the platform. So we did invite people, like, hey, we're talking about this. You're a mother. We're talking about motherhood. Can you be on the show? But now it's like we're discussing motherhood, and we want mothers in the community to be on the show. Can you please like let us know if you want to be on there? It's like more so if you want to be on there, you can be on there. So
and shout out to Uncle Steven. He said Uncle is thankful that you, the second or third generation of South Sudanese, are remarkably doing this. So thank you, Uncle. I hope you.
Thank you so much, Uncle.
Great
Thank
to
you,
see
Uncle.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Uncles are on TikTok.
Shout
I love
out to the uncles. And
Now they be on
aunties.
TikTok. Don't you be seeing them argue?
No.
Lives.
I have not seen uncles on like a lot of them on TikTok.
Bro, I just seen the aunties and the
I
uncles.
just got on TikTok. recently.
Uncles don't be as, you know, verbal with their insult because they know it can go throw down. But like aunties, they don't be caring. Calling each other all different names.
I love it, the Arabi Juba, because it helps me. I like when they're all just speaking Arabi Juba to each other because it's helping me grow. Because they're like arguing.
Zeus Network
like,
ain't got
That's how I learned Arabi Juba, because I've never been to Juba, but just the community growing up, going to the events, the speeches, people talking to you all the time. That's how I picked up on it, and I'm so thankful for that. But unfortunately for my little brother, the community wasn't as close then, so he can't even understand. Like, at least I might not be fluent speaking, but I can understand 100%.
Yeah.
And if I really need to say something, I could say something. But the younger generation, like my brother told me last month, he was like, I feel like I don't know who I am. Like, I don't know my culture. He started trying to ask me, because he's in college now, so he's trying to join like the East African Student Association. And he's like, I don't feel like I know enough about like my culture and who I am. You
That's
know?
yeah. That's
We should organize an event for all the younger kids that want to go back to Sudan to like indulge themselves in the culture again, speak to the people, because that would be a fun thing to do.
I love that. Like a fun, like something to, like for us to go back home.
Yeah.
And somebody can win.
Like, you know those travel companies that do like group trips? I feel like that would be amazing for Ladies of Sosa to host. There's this travel planner that I really love on TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, she's awesome.
But yeah, we can partner with her to support her business and put together a trip to like Juba, because I've never been back home. So what better way?
Oh my God, I forget you've never been back home.
Yeah.
That's wild. Who has been back home here?
No,
Tariq always says he's the only one that was
born
from Juba.
Sorry, but have you been back home since you've been born?
No, and I have no plans to be
American.
Oh, well,
anytime soon.
The way that Willie be saying shit, I be thinking he FBI. Like he's CIA.
Oh my God.
I go to Kenya and Uganda.
So I'm the only person that's been
That's
back home.
crazy. You go to Kenya, Uganda before you go.
He's a U.S. asset. Y'all don't understand this.
My mother's from Uganda, so.
And you say your mom is?
Yeah, she's from Uganda.
Oh, I didn't know.
I didn't
We
know
had
that
another.
She was raised in Uganda, or she's like from
I think
Uganda?
Willie
born
grew
in
up in
Uganda.
Kenya.
You're my
Yeah,
cousin?
but she was like raised.
Yeah,
or
he grew up
she's
in
like,
Kenya.
I don't
But
know.
that's wild that none of y'all have been back to South Sudan.
It's
We need to go
something.
back to South Sudan for sure.
Yeah, we
I don't
should.
know that.
Because it gives you a different perspective. I mean, I haven't like stayed there for a long period of time, but I've been there a couple times where I like sometimes my perspective is even just slightly different than someone that has never been there. And obviously my perspective will be different than somebody who's lived there their entire life. But I feel like it just gives you a different like dynamic or
But it kind of depends, because a lot of these people that go to Sudan right now, they just go sit at the Pyramids Hotel. So are they with the people, or are they chilling with
you can do both.
the
You
rich
can do both.
politicians? No, you can't,
First of all,
because
no.
the Pyramids Hotel is where all the corrupt people are.
Well, KK
Stealing
KK's
money.
in South Sudan right now, and he's like he was in the village. He was in his
Yeah,
village.
we got to check his pockets when he
my
comes
God.
back.
Honestly,
I'm just messing with KK.
But
That's actually-
but
I'm just
let's
messing with
get into
KK.
it.
He
So
know-
we
he
gotta
knows
get-
I'm- I
like,
know
we gotta
I'm
get off
fucking
because
with
we're
him.
actually gonna talk about it.
all right, guys. I'm gonna end the TikTok.
I'm gonna tell them what they said though. So Tariq said like when people go to South Sudan from back home from here, they just go and hang out at the Pyramid Hotel with all the corruption and all the money where people, and then their people are actually struggling. Like a majority of people are actually struggling. And so how come we're not going to be with the people? I feel like that's interesting to talk about. Like when we go to South Sudan, are we going to like actually support, like help and see what's going on in our country? Or are we going to get, I'm at
You know,
Pyramid
civil
Hotel.
servants.
I feel like,
vacation vibe.
my
If it's your
black ass-
That's the
first
thing.
time, Like for me, I probably will have a different perspective because I've never been there. I might kiss the ground when I get off the plane. No, like I might cry, honestly, because imagine being from somewhere and then never ever being there. Like it's something about being like home, like your ancestral land, like where your family's buried, where your family grew up. So I think if you've been to Juba before, it's like, okay, it's not really as, like for you, if you go back home, it's not going to be like as serious. But for someone who's grown up in diaspora and never been there, I think it hits a little different. You want to experience everything. Like we've traveled to different countries and you want to immerse yourself in like the culture and the people and stuff. So I feel like if I go back home, like I want to go to where my dad grew up, like where my,
you gotta go
like,
to the village.
Exactly. Like you just want to see what it's like to live here, to be here. What would my life have been if I grew up here versus America? So
she's not wrong. Like because I've never, after 5 years old, I've never been back to BA, and so like that's the same conversation I want to be at. Like my dad always tells me that's where your grandmother's buried. My dad took her there when she passed away in 2020, and he took her down there and buried her where she was buried. And that's the same spot I plan on being buried. That's the same spot.
Oh wow.
That I want like the rest of my kids. Like my dad has land over there, so for me, when I go back to Sudan, I'm not going to be in Juba. I'm spending my whole time with my grandmother. She's blind, but I think she still wants to see me there or feel me there at least.
Right. Yeah. And you're so blessed to do that, honestly, because that's my biggest that's my biggest regret is because we grew up in diaspora and not having that connection to be able to grow up with your actual immediate family and your grandparents. I feel like that's the only thing that I think I missed out on is like being able to grow up with my grandparents. And back home, like your family is buried like on your land at home. So it hits different to go back like to the village. Now it's like Juba, the capital. So to go back to where my grandmother and grandfather are buried, like at the house where everybody grew up, where people would come, like it's an open house for every member of the family. You can just show up and stay there. You know, South Sudanese culture, it's like family lives with you in and out. Like it's very communal style living. So I think like you said, being buried at home, it's different for us. It's like all your ancestors are
at home, at your home. So and I've never been to the village. I've been to South Sudan, but I haven't been to like my mom or dad's village. I do want to go, but I mean, I don't know. I just thinking about that because my dad is buried right next to my grandfather, in like outside. And it's powerful because like when he was buried, when he passed away, and they buried him, I didn't even realize understand how deep it is to be buried next, like at your in your home, in your village, next to like your ancestors. It's like an ancestral like continuing, you know, the lineage, and how beautiful and powerful that is. So
and
when
I
go,
see why people like will spend money to send people back home.
It's expensive too.
It's expensive,
thousands of dollars,
but
literally.
I see why they do it because you know, a lot of elders growing up are always like, just send my body back home. Like so I think it's spiritual as well.
It's so spiritual because if you go if I see my father, I'm also seeing my grandfather and my great grandfather and like the entire like Benjamin family and who made me who I am today. I'm seeing them all in one place.
And
it's
thinking of like our story as South Sudanese refugees, like we literally are all across the world. You know, we've started new lives for ourselves. We've built new foundations for ourselves, or we're in the process of doing so. So I think it's just so sentimental for people to be like, I want to go back to, you know, but I don't want that to be like I'm not invested on where I'm going to be buried just yet. I got a lot of life to live, you know, but I don't want that to be the only investment I have, or like that. I don't want that to be the only connection I have to that land. I want to live amongst my people. I want to like have experiences, not just send me back to Africa and I spend all my life in America. You know what I mean? I want to actually have lived there and like experienced that land and understand why it's sentimental, because we are like, we think of like the lost boys of South Sudan. I feel like we're lost in a sense too. Like what your brother expressed, Christine, about not having a cultural identity. I think that's something that I experience, you know, like not feeling like knowing where I come from, but not knowing who I come from, you know? So I feel like we have to learn about our culture and really like learn about our people and readjust even our goals as far as like what are our goals moving forward, because it's great to build a life for yourself here, but how is that reaching the goal of why my parents brought me here, which was to like be something productive that, you know, my nation could boast about or my nation can benefit from. So
can I reply to that with an honesty that I think we need to have with ourselves, is that there are going to be separations between South Sudan, right, and the Sudanese culture created in South Sudan, the Sudanese culture that's created in each individual diaspora, but we're all still one at the end of the day. And I think that's the conversation of, do we still have culture here? And I would say yes, we do. It's unique to us being here in the States, just like the Australian one is unique to Australia, just like the ones back home is unique. Just because you feel unconnected to your culture is in you innately. It's in the way you move, the way you talk, the way you look at life, the way that you view family. Like I always tell people, that's the reason why I always fight so vehemently to tell other Africans, you can't tell African Americans that they don't have no culture, because innately you're telling your kids in these different areas, you have no culture without your parent.
Right.
And that's wrong.
But that in itself, there's no South Sudanese culture, because every South Sudanese person, every tribe is different. If you go to a Bari wedding, it looks way different than a Dinka wedding, than a Choli wedding, than a Nuer wedding. Every culture comes from where you are established. So even in an American culture, people in Dallas, their culture is way different than when I go back to Florida. The Florida culture is way different than when you go to Atlanta. So there's not one culture for everybody. Wherever you're located at that present moment, it's going to be your culture. Irregardless is not a word, but regardless of who you want to be. So you have to just choose. A lot of times, culture cannot choose you. You got to choose the culture.
Yeah, but you have to acknowledge the fact that like it's like a ring. It's like whatever similarities you have with somebody, that's your similar culture.
Yes.
Like all of us right here, we've created a culture for the ladies of Sosa, right?
But that's based off your location, where you are with those people.
It's location, but it's still.
But
culture.
I think also like proximity too. So, for example, like I'm one of the oldest in my family lineage. So we grew up eating more cultured foods. I don't speak the language. I would love to have spoken the language, but my little brother, we're 14 years apart. And an example, like my mom made chapati this week.
The best. Did she make sukuma wiki?
She didn't. Oh. She made something else, but she made chapati, and I was so excited because I haven't had it in a while. So I asked my little brother, I'm like, "Oh, you want some?" He was like, "Yeah, I don't really eat."
That's crazy. That's
so
crazy.
you have the culture. You grew up with us, but your proximity to what you like. I guess there's different levels to it, right? Because I think we were so close to my mom and our aunties and our uncles and just being immersed in the community. And also I feel like the community was just way different when we were children. Like we looked forward to that. That was like a every other week type of thing.
Right.
Now it's a once in a while type of thing for the younger generation, to where, example, like Chris, like maybe not feeling as immersed in the community, maybe not understanding the foods or even knowing how to cook the foods.
Yes.
We used to cook the foods in college. We were making chapati in college.
We did.
We was making goulash in college.
We was making fatir. Girl, we made so much fatir. We got tired of it.
So you feel like y'all should like your brother and like was it your brother?
Yeah, my little brother.
Your little brother and your little brothers.
Yeah.
You feel like when they go to, I don't know if they're in college right now, but they're not going to be cooking like
they're not.
And I feel like Ugandan food.
Yeah, because we have that closeness with our parents right now, we need to take advantage of that, because right now they're kind of like our lifeline back to our culture, because a lot of us didn't grow up with having those close relationships with our grandparents. So we have to really take advantage of the sources that we do have here, so that we can get all the knowledge that we can, and then we pass it down to our siblings. We pass it down to the next generation, because they're going to look at us.
Right. Yeah.
So we don't know the language. We don't know how to cook the foods. We don't know. We haven't been back home. It's going to be our responsibility to carry that on. So
but we need to take initiative, because I told Chris, I was like, talk to mom and dad.
Right.
Like, they're there as a resource. I started asking my mom questions about like, how did my grandparents meet? Just different questions to know more about myself and like my history. So I was like, reach out. Like, it's a blessing for your parents to be alive. If you do not get that information directly from them, it's going to be lost forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, stories about like your family bloodline. What were your parents like? What was your story, Mom? Who were you before you had me? I think that's such a beautiful thing to be able to get directly from your parents while they're able to tell you themselves.
Right.
It's different to hear from like an aunt or a different family member, but to get that direct, like, this is who you are. That history and that culture is so important for you to have that confidence in, like, I can stand in any room. I know who I am.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is why I'm always a big component of South Sudanese authorship, writing. I want to get into blogs. My sister, she got a little blog going on. Just like having an archive, because a lot of our traditions it's oral, you know, and people forget things, you know, people get old, they get confused. We got to write our history down because we want that stuff to be remembered. You know, so many things have happened to us, and there's so much history that's going on right now, and that stuff needs to be preserved so that we can give that to our children, and like so people can know we have all these accomplishments that we have done. You know, we do have culture, all the things. So
our history.
Can I ask y'all to?
Because I was gonna say, like, based off being like talking about authorship and literature, because my mom wrote a book and she's an author now about her experience.
What's the book called again?
Woman Caught in the Crossfire.
Oh yeah.
You can get this on all platforms. You can get it on Amazon. I'll also link the website. It's www.womancaughtinthecrossfire.com. But she talks about her experience during the war in Sudan, between the Sudanese and the southern part of Sudan at the time. And you know, like, I could ask her experience, but it's so much. It's so detailed. It's so vast. So the fact that she wrote a book and I have something that I can go back to and actually be like, oh, my mom told me this and I forgot. Let me go back to the book or this page and remember like what she dealt with and like during the 80s or the 90s when the Civil War was happening. And that's the importance of having like something tangible that we can pass down to our family, because like you said, a lot of our history is oral. And we need we can't remember. How are we going to remember all of that?
Exactly.
So it's so important to like have like something that we can like a source that we can go back to. And I want like more South Sudanese people to like write their experiences.
Especially
like,
those who survived the war.
Yeah.
We should have a history book of an anthology, literally, of all the things that happened. Civil War predate. I think that we should have a textbook, literally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
lost noise.
Can I give a push? I mean, not a pushback. Addition. Not a pushback. I was gonna say. I was gonna. At first, I was thinking we could do a challenge where we had at least all of us here most of us have our parents here, right? I would challenge us to like invite our parents so that we can interview our parents and get to know each individual on the podcast.
That's a beautiful idea, Amanual.
Get to have an oral description in front of us.
Like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.